Good morning. Welcome to this episode. Happy or Merry Christmas Eve. Happy Christmas Eve. It's Merry Christmas. I don't know what Christmas Eve is. So, hope you are doing well on this holiday, during this holiday season. And I hope you got some a good candlelight service to go to or something. If not, if you live in the area, we are in Ely having a candlelight service, 5 to 6. If you're in Battle Mountain, my buddy Zach, at his church, theirs is at 7. I don't know what he's thinking, doing a 7 p.m. service, but hey, more power to him. So, let's jump in. Today, I want to talk about, so this episode, I'm going to be super upfront. It's not super well planned out. I just have a kernel of an idea. And so typically that means it's going to either be really short or really long. But I want to talk about my grandpa. So I'll give a little bit of background, and then to give a little bit of background, he just recently passed. So sorry if I get contemplative or whatever. He passed a couple months ago, and I have two sets of grandparents. On my dad's side, they've both passed away, and then on my mom's side, they've both been alive my whole life. My grandpa just passed. My grandma's still alive, and my mom's grandparents, they're the ones I was the closest to, like really close to. Like, I don't want to say second parents because they weren't like a parent role. They were like traditional grandparents. Like, we lived closer to them, so I would go over and spend the night at their house. Even before when we lived like in LA and they lived in Central California, we go on camping trips. So I grew up watching like family videos of being around them. And then about 6th grade, we moved closer and would basically, we're just super close. But even before that, even when I was like little, I lived in the same town as them, just across town. And then we moved to LA and we'd still see them and do whatever. And then again, we moved back about 6th grade. And so all through basically junior high and high school, they're super close. They were there with us at Christmas when I proposed to my wife. There for like my graduation, my 8th grade graduation, my high school. Well, they weren't at my high school graduation because it's hard to get tickets. Maybe they were. I don't know. I don't remember. I was a little busy graduating. To remember for sure. I don't think they were, but maybe they were. Anyways, they were there when I got back. We did graduation. Birthdays is the whole thing, right? Very close to them. My grandpa is very different than my dad. He's a lot like my mom. And so those were like the two like main, and they were both like manly men, but just in different ways. And so like where my dad was a little bit more, Enneagram, I don't know his Enneagram, but he's going to be more of like either a 1 or a 5 or, a little bit more of the logical, less emotional. My grandpa is, I don't know what he is, but he was, much more in touch with his emotions in terms of expressing them, especially by time like I was in high school. My junior year, I was commuting, and actually once a week I was staying the night at their house. Because it cut like 35 minutes off my commute, and then I'd go work out with him. I grew up like working out with my grandpa. Always had hunting and like fitness, like weightlifting magazines around, and then we'd work out. About 12, he'd take me to work out. I did some workout. I learned how to work out with him. He got me weights, and then my junior year in high school, like I said, I'd spend the night with him on Thursdays, and that was because that was the same time I talked in yesterday's episode about the Fox internship. That was Friday nights. And so I would, instead of going home on Thursdays, I would stay with them. And that was just a little bit of a shorter drive because Fridays were such a long day from doing the internship, getting out at midnight, then driving all the way home. Had an hour and a half commute back home in high school. So I would stay with them, have dinner. We'd go work out at his gym, the gym he had a membership to in town. So very influential. He was guns, motorcycles, working out, all that kind of stuff. So he recently passed. In fact, I think on Substack, I'm going to turn on the paid member section and have bonus content for paid members. Sorry, wasn't quite done swallowing. Drink break. So I think I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to have bonus content in there. And what I think I'm going to probably do is when I do these episodes, I will then probably record like an extra 15, 20 minutes going a little deeper and maybe even a little more personal. And those will be for like the paid supporters. There'll be other stuff too. And I think I have, so 2 times I went and visited my grandpa Not this last time I visited him. In fact, that could be a whole story. Before that, the last 2 times I visited him, he loves telling stories, right, about his life, and his life's super interesting, so I love asking him. And so 2 different times I had visited him. Both of them I thought would be the last time. Thank God neither one of them works. I knew he wasn't doing well. He had cancer, and he just, he lasted a lot longer than I thought he would. So I got 2 extra visits. Well, the third to last time I thought was the last time. So I started asking him stories, and I pulled up my phone and I recorded them. And then the second to last time, which I also thought was the last time we would see him, which it was the last time my wife and kids got to see him, I got to see him one more time this last summer when I went to Summer Smash. So that's a whole story there. And it was a God thing. And I thank God that I got to see him that time. So not that last time, but the second 2 that I thought times were the last time, I had him telling stories and I recorded him. So I think I'm going to grab those. I know I have at least one of them. I think I still have both of them. And I'm going to grab them and I'm going to kind of clean them up because, he's not on a microphone. It's just my phone sitting there. And, at that point, it's not the clearest. So I'm going to try to clean them up a little bit and see if I can't kind of, get them to be the best quality possible. And I think I'm going to upload both of those to the paid section, the members section of my Substack. So that way you guys can actually hear some of his stories and some of the, he was telling about his motorcycle racing and getting his business and stuff started. So that's the part I want to focus on. So if you are a actual subscriber, go ahead and check those out, and that will give you more context for this episode. But for those of you who aren't, I just the quick background is he was a mechanic. When he was younger, he was a mechanic, and he loved working on motorcycles, like the 2-stroke engines, all that kind of stuff. He rode motorcycles. He raced motorcycles. My whole life, he rode motorcycles. When he turned 60, he started racing again. He said he would. And so my only experience with him racing motorcycles was when he turned 60 and started racing again. And I actually got to go and see him at one of the races. So that's a really cool memory that I have. And I was probably high school by then. Well, 60, no, I would have been probably like 14. So I remember going and seeing one of his races. And so he raced for a year. His entire year from 60 to 61, that whole year, he did like probably half a dozen or a dozen, I don't know however many races that year. And there was like a league, it was like a league of older guys. They had like a heat with them. And so he wasn't like racing like 20-year-olds. He was racing like other, whatever that division was. So he raced, he worked on bikes, and at one point he had his own shop. Now I have another recording, which I don't think I have access to this anymore, and I regret that. I wish I did. I am actually going to spend a couple hours trying to recover it. It's going to be gone. But at one point I had an audio of him telling one of my favorite stories is when he started, he ended up starting a, I can't remember if he bought it or started it, but a lawn mowing business way back in the day. And he bought it. He bought this lawn mowing, but he took it over from a guy, bought this lawn mowing business. And, so he inherited all the clients. And so I have him telling this story because I'd heard him tell the story before, and then I wanted it, to hear it again. And it was over the phone. He did it, and it was recorded. And again, I'm an idiot, and I lost it. I didn't save it like I should have. I might have it, but it's a long shot. And he had this lawn mowing business, which then eventually turned into, he sold that, but then he started a little garage, where he did like mechanic work and stuff. And so he worked on, lawnmower engines, bikes, dirt bikes, that kind of stuff, right? Small engine mechanic, basically. So kind of the opposite of a diesel mechanic, a small engine mechanic. And he tells this story. Basically, there's a story that he could have gone 2 ways in life, and I don't know if he has any regret or not. But I've used this story as like a motivating factor to like go for it, and because I don't want to have regret. And I hear this story as if there was regret. I don't think he has any regret or had any regret in his life. I think he's perfectly happy with his life. But basically, he had this little shop, mechanic shop, where he worked on engines and stuff. and he wanted to become a dealership, and he tried to become, I think it was Kawasaki dealer, and basically said, no, we don't want a dealership there in town. And he ended up, because he couldn't become a dealership, that's what he really needed to like take the business to the next level, and it wasn't quite making it. And so because they wouldn't do a dealership in his town, he either sold or folded the business, and he ended up going into some other stuff. He was a painter, he was a consul, he eventually got into law enforcement, and that's what he did. I have some very early memories of him as a painter, but most of my life he was in law enforcement. He was a constable, and then he was a sheriff towards the end, but he was a constable most of my life in town, and then he eventually retired from that. So my grandpa and my dad were both in law enforcement. Yeah, sorry for some pauses and stuff, like, a little emotional kind of talking about it, because again, it was only a few months ago. So it was 6 months ago that I saw him last, and then he, passed a few months after that. So it's only, wow, actually, no, I think he passed like maybe a month and a half after that. Maybe 2 months max. So I literally got to see him there right at the end. Okay, all this is, so that's some background. Again, if you're a paid supporter, you're going to get to hear about some of his racing and some other kid stuff, like childhood stuff too, but you're going to hear, I know one of them, he specifically talks about racing, like two-stroke bikes and stuff like that. And again, if I can find it, I'll put in the one about the lawn mowing business, but I don't think it's in there, so I might just tell that story and put it in there, and I might have like 3 audio pieces in there for you guys. So, at least 2. Definitely 1. I'm pretty sure I have 2. I might recreate the 3rd one, or long shot find the 3rd one. So 1 to 3 of those for the paid members. Okay, for the rest of you, that's the background. So 2 days ago, I'm in Round Mountain with my kids, and we're getting ready to leave and come back home. So actually, yeah, this would have been Saturday. And I don't remember why, but we're talking about Mr. Beast for some reason. And I basically said, and I don't really watch Mr. Beast, but I like him. I don't really watch his stuff. Every now and then I'll watch a video, but it's probably been 3 years since I've watched a video. Probably about that. In New York, I would watch some of his stuff because I was doing youth ministry, so I'd get some ideas for some of his challenges and stuff. So my son and I will talk about him, right? Like, we'll occasionally buy him like, the Beast bars, the chocolate bars, and back when we were in New York, I used to love, we could do Mr. Beast burgers, and so that was like my favorite thing to get for lunch. I'd get the Chris style, it was so good. Anyways, and so I made the comment, and I said, because for whatever reason, Mr. Beast came up, and I made the comment, it was a comment, it was a video someone did, that's what it was. And so we're talking about Mr. Beast, and I said, hey, if any of you can guess why I like Mr. Beast, and I go, no, there's multiple reasons, but there's like a main reason. If you can guess the main reason I like Mr. Beast, even though I don't really watch his stuff, I'll buy you a candy bar. We're going to stop, we'll stop at the gas station on the way out of town, and I'll buy you a candy bar, or a candy, or whatever. So they all kind of guessed. Now, my son got the closest, but didn't quite get it. In fact, he got close enough that it gave the answer to my daughter, who had already, I told him you all get one guess, so she'd already used her one guess. She's like, man, I should have gone last. I could have gotten it. And honestly, it's for no other reason than his name is Jimmy. And that is my grandpa's name. Now, I called him Paho, or Grandpa as I got older, but Paho as a kid. And his name, he went by Jim, but his name was Jimmy. And like my grandma, we had memories of my grandma calling him Jimmy, like calling him from the other room. So he was Jim Hood, but Jimmy was his actual name. And we were actually going to name my second son his middle name, but he didn't necessarily love the name Jimmy, so we went with Hood. So it's my middle, his last name's Hood, and so my middle son's middle name is Hood. So my boys don't have the same middle name. So yeah, I made a comment and I said, oh man, could you imagine if he was alive now? I said, or like during this time, young. I said young during this time, because he was alive now. He just passed a couple months ago. If he was young now, and I said, could you imagine basically if he had, because I made a comment, he's kind of like Mr. Beast. Like, they're kind of similar in some ways. And so I was like, could you imagine if like Grandpa had basically all the, like the social media stuff now? And I was like, then one way he may have not used it at all, but if he did, could you imagine? And I was like, man, he went back. Imagine if he started doing videos and live streams and all this kind of stuff when he had his shop and his racing. And I'm like, yeah, then he would have had, he would have had all of his videos of like the mechanic stuff. He'd had his shop. He would have built that up. He'd have had his racing stuff. As he got a little bit older and he had to retire from racing, then it would have turned into, because they used to do like long cross-country motorcycle rides, him and my grandma. So he went from like the little 2-stroke bikes. Indian, I think, is the one he raced the most. But again, if you listen to that audio, he'll talk all about it. I think there was some Ducati, but I think it was mostly Indian bikes. And I was like, then once he got, he would then gone up, because then he got the bigger touring bikes, like the Honda Shadow. Eventually he got a Harley, but then he, had a lot of like the touring bikes and stuff. And then he got like the Harley when I was a little bit older, like high school, and he used that for like cruising around town. But they had all these, long distance touring bikes, and they'd go, so we grew up in California. They go all the way out to the East Coast, Pennsylvania, all this kind of stuff on these tours. They also had a Mazda Miata, and they were part of a club, and they do stuff with the Miata too. But he did a lot of these long distance things. So as he got a little too old to do the racing, then he would have retired from that, and then gone into these long tours, and then he would have basically become like a vlogger, because now he's like vlogging. He was touring. I'm like, man, could you imagine? And so I kind of wanted to just talk about that for a little bit today, like that alternate reality. If social media was around like back in the 50s, or if he was young now, like, and again, I know there's like a million things. You talk about the butterfly effect, but let's just suspend the suspension of belief here, right? Of disbelief here. If we can pretend like the Autobots could be real for 2 hours to watch that movie. Let's have this quick conversation. And this was honestly, it's gonna be more build up than the actual, because we're gonna wrap up here soon. We're not gonna spend too much longer on this, but just I want to like kind of look at the idea a little bit, because I built that out with my own. Like, what if I went back? How would I do it differently? That actually helped me immensely, and I'm actually applying a lot of that stuff to what I am doing now. So sometimes I think like it can be bad to just dwell in the past, but I think it can be good to learn from the past. And sometimes I like to build out these like alternate reality ideas, and it gives me ideas of strategies and stuff. So I kind of want to do that a little bit. Like, imagine, so he has his lawn mowing business, and he ended up selling that not because it wasn't successful, but because he ended up having like a hay fever or a grass allergy. And so he was mowing these lawns, and it was tearing him up. And so he eventually sold it to a couple guys who then they, expanded it, and eventually I think they ended up buying, they became, it was two brothers, and they actually turned that into, so it actually helped both of them, because I think the guy who started it, I think he retired, he was older. My grandpa did it, took the cash, because he wanted to start the garage, but he didn't have the cash for the down payment to buy that business from the guy. And so then he sold his business, which was physically not, he was having issues and stuff, and he was come home and he'd be torn up for the rest of the day, and he'd be like sick from all the, his allergies. And so he used that to, I think, if the story I remember accurately, to the down payment for his little garage. And those brothers used that, and they eventually turned it into like a landscaping business, where they went from just mowing lawns to landscaping to eventually it was, they weren't even doing that anymore, but they were like a nursery. They started a nursery, and then that became like their whole business, where they were selling landscaping stuff to landscapers, and trees and mulch and all that kind of stuff. So it worked out for all of them. The one guy retired. One guy used it to start his shop, and the other guys used it to start their landscaping then / nursery business. And it turned into a pretty big, like multi-million-dollar business, if I remember the story correctly. So my grandpa, let's pretend my grandpa's went that way. So his, instead of doing it for however many years, couldn't get the dealership, and then eventually, did the painting business for a little bit and became, what if his became the multi-million-dollar business? Imagine if there was social media. So imagine he starts this lawn mowing business, and he does it, and he does this story about how he ended up losing one client because he was really efficient and he found better ways to do it. So he actually got fired by one client, because she's like, well, you only spend 45 minutes mowing my lawn. The other guy spent over an hour. And he's like, yes, but this is why, I've got I figured out a pattern, and I do this, and then so I've actually just increased the efficiency. So he's like, I'm still mowing the lawn just as good as the other guy. He's like, are there any complaints? She's like, no, it's just as good, actually even better than the old guy, but he spent over an hour, and you're only spending 45 minutes. And so I'm going to go hire someone who spends an entire hour on it. And he's like, well, that makes absolutely no sense, but whatever. So imagine that happens. And he's like, man, I got to drum up some more business, Like, this business is going pretty good, but like I just lost a client, and what if I lose more? I didn't really think about that. I just was thinking I bought the business from this guy, and I just have all of his clients. But, they move, they die, they fire me, they find someone else with cheaper prices. I've been hearing about this social media stuff, and, I just kind of thought it was phooey or whatever. But like, what if I really, and so I could just imagine him getting into it and, doing his first video and doing some stuff, and then, like you got that guy now, like if you see the videos that's popular, they do the time lapses of them like cleaning people's yards. I can just imagine, he starts doing some time lapses. He does, maybe he gets into a little bit of like, well, I guess he wasn't older back then. So I was thinking he does like some Dry Creek Wrangler school with Dwayne, right? But he was younger, so that wouldn't have worked yet. And I could just imagine him like doing some little stuff here and there, and then he gets the shop, right? He's having issues, the allergies, he sells it, he gets the shop. Then I could see that's where the social media really starts to take off. Because at first he does it mostly just for promoting, right? He's been doing some stuff. Maybe he gets into doing some online ads, some Facebook ads, maybe some YouTube ads, whatever. But then he really starts having fun as he starts, working on stuff. So maybe one day he's there and he's got an engine he just can't figure out he's working on. So maybe at that point, he decides to fire up the camera or maybe even go live. He was like, you know what? I'm here late. I'm going to be working late tonight. It's getting kind of lonely. My wife's out of town on a girls' trip, so I'm going to be here all night working on this thing. I've been trying to figure this whatever out, and I want to get this done for this client. I just thought, maybe we could hang out together. And he goes live, because I'm really speculating here. You have to just play with me on this one and go with me on this one as I kind of, build this thing out. So some of you are like, what the heck was this episode? I don't know. Maybe it was just therapy for me. And so I can imagine that. And then I can imagine him enjoying that so much, of like the interaction of people giving advice. No, I already tried that, this, blah, blah, blah. I could see him having so much fun doing that because he was such a social person. Like, I'm an introvert. He was an extrovert. Right? I could imagine him just enjoying that so much that he's like, I'm going to keep doing this. And so I could even see him like, okay, that was fun. Well, she doesn't get back for a couple more days. I'll do this again. And, I wasn't planning staying late every night, but this is kind of fun. Maybe I'll close down the shop like normal, go home, get some dinner, or maybe, go out and go to CC's Pizza or whatever, get something to eat. And then, I shouldn't have said CC's Pizza. That one got me a little bit. I don't even know if it was around back when he was younger, but that's a place when I was young we'd go to. That was a mistake to say. Let me recover. Okay. Let me do a quick drink break here and kind of recover from the flood of memories coming in from that. Okay, so, he comes back and he goes live again. All right, gonna be here again, and say, close the shop down, 4 or 5 o'clock. Comes back, let's say it's 8 o'clock. He's like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Goes live again, works again. Does that a couple nights, enjoys it so much. And then he's like, I think I want to incorporate this. I could see him doing it, throughout the day when the shop's open. I could even see him rig the shop up, with multiple cameras and just it being live, almost like not a game show or a reality show, but like just, having a camera set up, showing the counter where he could go live and he, people, I'm sure everyone in town knew him. I can imagine people coming in and being like, if he's like, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to go live. So if you don't want to be on the live, obviously don't come in during his hours. And if you do, come on in. I could even see him having like some chairs set up, some stools set up, a little fridge with some Cokes, and people come in and sit and they just talk. And so it's like, I could see it becoming this whole thing, right? He becomes like a live streamer type thing. I wonder if part of this is I'm doing this in yesterday's episode, I talked about how I feel like I need to go live with my workouts, but I'm like terrified to, and I'm hesitating. So I wonder if a lot of this is like my subconscious helping me build this out. Because if you think about it, everything I'm describing is like my journey with the fitness stuff and needing to like with the going live. So I wonder if this is your like real time seeing like my subconscious build out my confidence and excitement because I ended that episode. I'm recording these back to back because of Christmas this week. I'm not gonna be able, not gonna be in the office every day. So I just finished Tuesday's episode and took a short little break, went and used the restroom, came back and immediately started recording this episode. So for me, there's only like a 7-minute gap in between those 2 episodes. For you, there's a day. So I wonder, because I committed at the end of that episode very hesitantly to go live on TikTok in my workout tomorrow, and like almost immediately regretted it. And so I wonder if this is my way of building up the confidence and excitement to then actually do that. But anyways, I could see it turning this entire thing, right? And then, as he gets into racing, I could see, having the race videos, like the highlight videos that would get posted. He has a little shop, and I could see once he kind of started, him and my grandma started touring, and he was like when I say touring, I mean motorcycle rides. Well, I mean, he could have built up, those could have actually been tours to meetups, right? The whole thing could have paid for the trip. And then, those become like vlogs. I could see him like vlogging, traveling the country. I could see him doing that like twice a year, going out on these long trips. Maybe one was a little shorter. They go, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, all that kind of stuff, like a Western tour. And then, maybe in fall. And then like in spring, I could see him doing early summer, doing like a summer tour where they'd go out and he'd set up meetups and he'd vlog the whole thing and then have meetups and they'd do some of the live, like the shows, but now they have different people. He'd go to different shops. And I literally am building out what my business strategy needs to be. Except instead of the mechanic shop, it's my little gym studio, and instead of motorcycle riding and the meetups being, in other shops, dealerships and garages, it's going to be other gyms. And so I'm literally sitting here. That's exactly what's happening right now. So if you wonder what the heck is this episode, well, this is how I come up with my stuff, guys. It's normally not this much like real time, but like, this is a pretty decent example of how I come up with my ideas, and sometimes they're genius and sometimes they're terrible, but this was just kind of a culmination of like things I've been thinking about for the last several months, and it kind of all just clicked and came together, and I did it in an imaginary story of my grandpa, imagining him in another life, but I basically set that up to just meet the same parameters. I didn't even realize I was doing this. And yeah, man, so that's basically what I need to do. I'm gonna set up my gym, which I'm in the process of, and I did my first video this morning. Tomorrow I need to go live. I need to go live on TikTok. And then once I can I'll do that for, however long it takes me to set up all the other more fancy equipment. And then I'll start going live on, everything and interacting with, the audience and building that out. And then once I build up enough of a community, then go on tours, which I drive all over the country anyways. And I love that idea. And so I even told my wife, I said, hey, if I do Summer Smash this year, which I don't know because last year it was over her birthday and she was okay with that. I almost can't. I was like, I can't go. She's like, just do it. This year is not a birthday I can easily miss. So we're going to do something bigger. We'll probably be out of town. So there's a good chance I won't be able to do Summer Smash this year, but if for some reason it works out where they're on separate weeks and we're going to be able to, I want to do it. But then I told her, I said, I don't just want to drive out there and back like I did. I want to have stops along the way where, I hit gyms and churches, and like I want to hit like different churches meet up with pastors, and we go into a gym and we do workouts and like the whole kind of thing, and it'll be fun. I'd love to do the same thing with like gym owners. So just do a bunch of cold calling and basically set up a tour on the way there, and then do Summer Smash, and then on the way back. And that's literally, that's what I need to do. And not even just Summer Smash. Even if I can't make it to Summer Smash, I need to plan a summer tour and start reaching out to gym owners and even pastors and set up, get the pastors as workout buddies and the gym owners as even trying to do little meetups and events and stuff there. So you guys literally just saw the strategy of what I'm going to try to build over the next 2 or 3 years. So, with that, I don't know what else I'm supposed to say in this episode, so I think I'm going to wrap it up. I think that was a pretty good episode, if not for you guys, at least for me. It was like therapy and strategy session all in one. So with that, guys, I love you. I really appreciate you today. We got a lot of work done. And have a blessed day, and I'll see you in the next episode.